Heads up. This won't be short, and it is certainly going to upset some folks. Not my intention, but it has to be said. I have been watching meetings, following up with various issues, and gossip, and I have a few points to make, based solely on what information I have. I still haven't been able to verify, as apparently litigation is keeping people quiet. 1. As someone extremely well versed in nonprofit laws and rules, by both state and federal, I can say, for 100% certainty, that a huge law, not just a rule, is that no nonprofit organization representative acting in accordance with the organization can take a political position, stance, or endorse a specific political individual in a government election. The only exception is a nonprofit established solely for the purpose of political affairs. Those nonprofits are categorized completely differently and cannot receive tax-exempt donations. Any organization or representative found violating this nonprofit/political mandate will not only lose nonprofit status forever, but be subject to fines and penalties, along with an audit. They will be forced to pay taxes on all earnings and assets since the nonprofit was established, and it shall be the responsibility of all of the board of directors. It has been advised, to me, personally, by a nonprofit attorney, that all of the board of directors should never hold a government office or seat in the same district as said nonprofit. If it was ever found out that a single decision was made by someone holding a seat of both, regardless of in favor or opposing, the nonprofit can be subject to a complete forfeiture of all assets associated with the nonprofit, and the individual can face criminal, ethical, and conflict of interest charges. I'll provide these statutes to anyone who would be interested in educating yourself further. Now correct me if I'm wrong. Apparently, this is all a part of litigation, and therefore, no one will verify, but Ranger Airfield property was either sold or donated to a nonprofit, which, if I am to understand it, is run by a now sitting city council member. From what I interpret, has even brought up obtaining more land and, from what I hear in town, has demanded city service accommodations. The fact he even sits on the council, in the same town, as his nonprofit, will draw scrutiny from the IRS. But anything from him, other than, I recuse myself, is an absolute violation. The idea of being on public record saying anything else is special, to say the least. Now, anyone I have ever known, myself included, involved with a nonprofit, is drilled with this knowledge, to never cross into politics. It's essentially cardinal rule number 1 of 3. Every time I ever file our annual report, there is a specific question, asking if I have any political affiliations, and a clause, reminding me not to. I have heard of churches losing everything, because a pastor simply expressed his approval of a political candidate while standing in the pulpit. Initially, the church's fines exceeded $250,000, and they were ordered to pay back taxes for 40+ years that the church was established. The church took it to court, and the IRS agreed, in mediation, to only charge for back taxes since the start of the pastor's tenure of 20-something years. Everything else the IRS still required of the nonprofit church. Second point, anyone screaming and making threats while sitting in a government seat against its citizens and/or other government officials in any capacity, including loss of employment, commits a felony and is subject to 5 to 10 years in prison. That's on a federal level. The state has additional penalties. I will provide that information as well to anyone interested. My third and final point. The attempt to build privately owned homes, private businesses, clubs, or other establishments that restrict the use of the public is strictly prohibited. The purpose of a nonprofit is outreach, community engagement, and community support. You cannot build private facilities on nonprofit property. There are a few exceptions, but they are limited. Even those exceptions have restrictions. For example, churches can have a house for a pastor or facilities management for security personnel, grounds maintenance, etc. A non-profit zoo could have a single-family dwelling for a board member and a specialized animal handler, but handler quarters could not be a full family dwelling. Again, there is a list of exceptions, but each one is also followed up with a huge list of restrictions that typically have to do with public or specific uses. So, a church can have 20 houses, but a specific percentage must be used for social benefits, like battered women, homeless individuals, maybe special needs homes, fostering children. You get the point. Basically, if it is not established for the welfare of the community, it's a big fat no. Not happening. And doing so will forfeit everything. Nonprofit rules and regulations are 3 times longer, personal estimate can't remember specifically, than for-profit businesses are. Now, it's my understanding that there is a contractual agreement between the city and the airport nonprofit. Something to add, everything under a nonprofit is essentially owned by the board, so anything sold or dissolved is supposed to be divided equally among all board members. 4 seats have to be occupied, and 3 people minimum are to hold those seats. The president is not allowed to hold a secretary seat, but 2 positions can be held by 1 person, for example, vice president/secretary, president/treasurer, secretary/treasurer, etc. I would be curious to see if the IRS, or even the Texas Secretary of State, the nonprofit division, has anything to say. Because I doubt it was run by a nonprofit attorney, and yes, that specific is necessary, a nonprofit attorney, I learned the hard way. Also, I can tell you, the closest official nonprofit attorney is in downtown Fort Worth. I know this is long and tedious, but as it affects every citizen who pays the taxes to live here, is it really fair for the people who struggle and have limited income to pay for city services for people who not only have the financial means, but try to use power and influence to subjugate you? Certain individuals want to use the fact that the majority of people have no clue or desire to know tax laws. So, to summarize, the effects of hangar homes, built by a nonprofit, means no tax dollars on those homes. That means our schools won't receive the benefits of their luxury in our community. None of law enforcement or fire departments are paid from their vacation homes. But they will certainly demand additional patrols or priority over the rest of the citizens. I'm all for growth, but I don't support carrying the weight of others when they are fully capable of carrying their own weight. Okay, public service announcement over. Instead of adding all the statutes, I'll make them available on request, either by email or print, if you want them.